Hey guys, welcome to Cricut. Do you have an overflowing scrap bin? I know I do. Today I'll show you some tips and tricks for cutting a variety of small materials like scraps on one mat. We'll make this scrapbook layout and utilize some scraps I have left over from a previous project. For the layout, we need cardstock, scraps of patterned paper and vinyl, adhesive, a Cricut Midnight pen, and transfer tape. Open Cricut Design Space, make sure you're logged in and click on Create New Project. Let's customize our canvas to represent a 12 by 12 paper we'll be using as the base of our layout. The scrapbook layout canvas is here in the background of our project, and remember, the software doesn't cut the canvas. We don't need it to. It's just a representation of the base page we're using for our layout. Let's make the color match our paper. Now let's begin to design our layout. I like dark gray cardstock as a base, but let's create another light gray layer by adding a free shape and adjusting the dimensions and color. I'd like the photo for this layout to have a frame, so let's search for one now. I know I like the frames on the Smalltalk Frames and Tags cartridge, so I'll filter for the image set. I'm making the layout today to capture the relationship between my friend's two boys, and I'd like a frame that has something to do with love. Oh, this one is perfect. This image has two layers, and we'll use both, but as separate images, so let's ungroup the layers. Insert a square for the photo and adjust the size to 4.5 inches. And now we can adjust the frame to match. We can also hide the contour line for this frame since we don't need the center cut out. Let's also change the frame to white. Now we can add the photo by clicking Upload Images and Pattern Fill. Follow the steps to upload the photo, and we can find the photo in the Layer Attributes panel. Fill the square with the photo by changing it to a print layer in the Layers Attribute panel, and then select the photo as the pattern. Change the photo and frame to one print, then cut image. I want to add the boys' names to the photo frame, so let's have the Explorer write them for us. Just type the text, select a writing style font, and attach the text to the frame so it will write in the correct place. You don't even have to do it yourself. Let's start to play with the placement of these elements on our canvas. I love that I can see the finished design here on the canvas before I cut. I can adjust the size to scale without needing to measure anything. We need to insert more images to be cut from our patterned paper, vinyl, and cardstock scraps. So let's start with the pennant. Now we can duplicate, resize, and rotate the image to fit our layout design. Let's change the color to match this light teal cardstock scrap. Move the photo layer back to the front. For a title, I always like to check for stylized phrase images first. I want to use the title Brotherly Love, but I don't think there'll be an image for brotherly. I bet there's one for love. This chunky style of the lettering will be perfect for our boy-themed page, so let's use this second frame image for the placement of the title. For the second part of the title, we'll use a font. I like Cricut Craft Room Basics. Let's add a question mark to the title for fun. Let's change the text we type to green. All right, this looks good, but it needs more hearts. Let's add some heart shapes and resize them. I think 5 should be enough. Change the colors to match our scraps. Oh, I love this. It feels finished to me. Before we move on, let's make sure we save the project. We could click Go at this point and follow the steps to load each mat, but since we're using such small pieces of paper, let's set this up to cut all the scraps at once on a single mat. To arrange our scraps, we need to be able to see the canvas. So select and move everything on the screen over to the right. Now the canvas will represent our mat. Move the images that will be cut from scraps to different sections of the canvas. Keep in mind that we'll be using one dial setting for the cut, so place images that will be cut from similar materials on the mat. The hearts and the love phrase will be cut from different pieces of pattern paper, but I won't arrange the vinyl phrase in cardstock on this mat since we'll use different dial settings for those materials. Now let's set up our mat to match the placement of our images. I like to do this now because I can still see all of the colors in our design. It helps me place the scraps correctly on the mat. Select the hearts and the love image. Click Attach. The software will hold the placement of the images as they relate to each other on the mat. And even though the color of the images appears to be the same on the canvas, the layers will be cut from the colors we placed on the mat. Aren't you glad we arranged our paper on the mat while we had the colors as a guide? I know I am. We're now ready to cut the project. I do not save the project again at this point because I want to retain the original design as my save file. If you do want to save the changes we made by attaching, be sure to click Save As, but give the project a new name. And that way you can have a saved copy of both versions. If everything looks good to you on the mat preview, go ahead and click Go. Since we've already prepared our mat with the scraps, we need to skip down and cut this mat first. This pattern paper is very thin, so I'll set the dial to Paper Plus and load the mat. Press the blink and go button on the machine to begin the cut. After the cut, the software returns to the top of the mat list. We can continue cutting starting with our Print Then Cut image. Click Print Page and follow the instructions. Place the printed page on a mat and load it into the machine. Load the midnight pin into accessory clamp A and press the blink and go button on your machine to continue cutting. Now continue to load and unload the mats as prompted by the software to cut the remaining pieces. Whenever I assemble projects that have a lot of layers like this layout, I like to refer back to my project canvas for reference. Since I saved the project before I made the changes for mat placement, I can just open it and see the completed design. This helps me position the layers as I assemble the layout. Start at the bottom layer and work up, adhering as you go. I like to use these little foam squares between some layers for some added dimension. Use the weeder to remove the excess vinyl from the phrase, and then use transfer tape to apply the images to the layout. For the finishing touch, we can add a few embellishments. I love that this layout was made mostly with scraps, and my friend, she is going to love it. Cricut makes it easy to go from inspiration to creation.